Yeah. My sunglasses.
I'm ready.
Yep.
Okay. Good afternoon, Dolphins fans. What is up? Chris Perkins here, your Sun Sentinel Dolphins columnist. David Furones there, your Sun Sentinel Dolphins writer. We are getting down to the stretch run of the season. Actually, we're in the stretch run of the season. Your Miami Dolphins 8-6 on a 3-game losing streak, but it's kind of bizarre. It doesn't really feel like a 3-game losing streak considering how they played in Buffalo. It's maybe the most optimistic loss in a long time. Now, the Dolphins basically need to win 2 of their last 3 games to get their first playoff berth since 2016. The most important of those games being the Patriots and the Jets because they're division and conference opponents. But, of course, the next game is against Green Bay here at home on Sunday, Christmas Day, 1 p.m. kickoff. And some of the things that we're going to talk about today, can Tua lead them to 2 victories? And what role does the run game need to play down the stretch run of the season? The run game surfaced in a big way against Buffalo, but is it here to stay? The defense, once again, allowed a big total in a road game. We'll talk about the fans' defensive concerns, and they are huge. They range from defensive coordinator Josh Boyer to edge rusher Bradley Chubb. Now, the Dolphins, they're 0-3 in December, but we're going to discuss how we see the season finishing. And on top of that, Pro Bowl rosters. They'll be announced tomorrow night. We expect to hear Tua's name called. Let's dive in. All right, well, Furones, let's talk about what's required of Tua in these final 3 games. He's going to be relying on to keep the offense humming. His accuracy has been good. His decision-making has been good. Well, I say that, and here's what one thing that we're going to discuss is Mike McDaniel said he saw Tua completely correct the things in Buffalo that held him back in the San Francisco 49ers loss and the Los Angeles Chargers loss. Is that what you saw, and what do you think Tua needs to do down this stretch run to get the Dolphins into the playoffs?
Yeah, maybe not completely fixed everything, but it was an encouraging sign to see him really bounce back after really just back-to-back poor outings. And one of them where, well, we saw different defenses that the 49ers and Chargers threw at him. And ultimately, the main thing was trying to take away the middle of the field where he has been so effective. That middle of the field, medium depth range where Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle have been open so many times. And a lot of the creativity in the Dolphins offense really, and the eye candy, everything motion just results in getting them open in the middle of the field where they have room to then make a move potentially. And 49ers did it by moving their linebackers back. Chargers did it by a lot of press coverage, man with the corners, playing physical with Tyreek and Jalen. And then you saw an adjustment. I mean, from his very first throw or very first completion, it was passed to running back Raheem Mostert in the flat on 1st and 15 or 2nd and 15, whatever it was, but it got them 20 yards. And then you saw, okay, well, he checked it down. He didn't have his first read. He was able to check it down, and it resulted in a positive play. And it was open for a reason. Of course, Raheem also made a move. And then later, the throws to Jalen Waddle streaking on a 3rd down deep for a touchdown. Tyreek Hill after looking off the safety. So you saw some impressive things. And then even he would have had another touchdown earlier if he makes back-to-back throws, one to Tyreek Hill, right over a defender where it does hit him in the hands. It was a tough catch, but he doesn't come up with it. And then Trent Sherfield had the drop when he was open at the goal line on that series where Bills fans were just pelting the Dolphins in the end zone with snowballs coming in from all levels of Highmark Stadium in Western New York before the announcement was made that the Bills would get penalized if a snowball would happen to hit somebody. But just an impressive performance, and especially against a very good defense in a tough environment. All the questions coming into the game about if he could play in cold weather, and he answered the bell for the most part and kept the Dolphins in it. In fact, with a lead in the 4th quarter, and then just, it was Josh Allen really against this Dolphins defense. We're going to talk about that a lot later, but just not being able to get the stops. Josh Allen's played spectacular outside of like a third quarter stretch where the defense kind of got some stops and then ultimately just methodically held onto the ball for those final 6 minutes, didn't give Tua and the Dolphins another chance after that. So it would have been nice to see as it started snowing in the fourth quarter if Tua would have then responded and then led the Dolphins to a winning or tying drive after that. But we were robbed of that opportunity because of the brilliance of Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, and look, we can digress for a second. Talking about that snow that fell in the fourth quarter, I mean, our drives home from the stadium were treacherous. I mean, for part of it, we were going on unplowed roads. The drive into the stadium was good because the roads were clear, they were plowed, it wasn't snowing. But in that fourth quarter, man, that snow that they have been talking about, it came, and the field by the end of the game is covered in, what would you say, Furones, 3 inches of snow, 4 inches of snow? I mean, it was covered. Looked like an ice skating rink.
Yeah, I'm no expert in measuring inches of snow. In fact, I would hear the terms, and being from Miami, and I've seen snow. I've traveled and seen snow, but for one, I had never driven in snow, so that was my first time. But I always never even knew what exactly the inches of snow meant because, like, some of it melts throughout the day, so it doesn't all stick. When they say inches, does that mean that's how high the height of the snow that piles up on the ground is? So I had to learn a bunch of stuff, including how to drive in the snow. And really, I mean, I took a lot of coaching, even turned some of Mike McDaniel's words throughout the week into encouragement for myself driving in these elements, where I said, it's only going to affect me if I let it affect me. And I went ahead and just did what I had to do. Now, I made sure to also take all the strategic standpoint driving points, like, okay, don't hit the gas too quickly. Don't brake with plenty of time in advance. I drove very slow. It takes a lot of patience to drive in the snow. Nothing like driving on the Palmetto in rush hour.
Right. Exactly, man. It was just a little bit. Hey, as McDaniel says, adversity is an opportunity. So you took advantage of that opportunity. You should be proud of yourself, Furones.
I made an opportunity out of the adversity that I went through driving in that snow.
That's it. Yeah, I took a lift to the game, and then I rode back with Armando Salguero, from Outkick, the former Miami Herald, longtime Herald writer. We were staying at the same hotel. So, but I've driven in snow before, covering games, covering NBA. It's not a lot of fun, but at least there was no ice. That's what you hate. So anyway, let's talk about the, some of the tweets that we've been getting from fans, and we always appreciate it. You guys always respond when we ask you to tweet in questions. And Furones, one thing that people are wondering about is the run game. And we got this one from David Burner 1313. Why did we abandon the run in short yardage and in particular in the second half? And we got another tweet from Gator Josh 01, kind of wondering the same thing. Why do you think this past game, aside from total rush yard standpoint, the Dolphins don't run the ball like in this offense like they should? If it's like the Niners, we should run the ball a tad more, in my opinion. Your thoughts? And I'll say this, Furones, as far as the Buffalo game, I loved seeing the commitment to the run game. I think that's what this offense needs. We know that Mike McDaniel likes that. He was the run game coordinator in San Francisco last year as their offensive coordinator. They're 7th in rushing. I don't think that they had faith in the run game previously to go to it more. Now, we saw them go hard with the run game this game. If I'm not mistaken, Raheem Mostert had 7 carries for 101 yards in the first quarter. I believe he ended up with 136. The Dolphins ended up with 188. But one thing that happened there, Buffalo started playing an 8-man front. They started dropping a safety down into the box, Jordan Poyer. And so at that point, the Dolphins figured, well, if they're going to play single high safety and we've got Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, why not try to attack that? And that was a big factor in going away from the run game, is that they saw an opening. They saw an opportunity. And so they tried to go with that. What your thoughts on the run game and what role the run game could play down the stretch?
Sure. And first of all, the name of that account was David Burner, right? Just to clarify, that is not my burner account,
right?
That I use to tweet out hot takes that I can't otherwise put on Twitter and tweet on social media. I don't have a burner account.
I thought I was doing you a favor by promoting your other account, but okay, my bad.
No, I don't think I would want it to be out there. Separate it from me as much as possible. But yeah, that was one thing I wondered, and I even asked Mike McDaniel about post game is going away from the run game a little bit after it was so successful. And yeah, he mentioned that it was about the adjustments, both that the Buffalo Bills were showing with that 8-man front, and then also staying ahead of other adjustments. And also what it comes down to is, hey, two of your most talented players, two of your, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 most talented players are these receivers in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So, yes, you want to make sure you are including them as much as possible. And they both had great games. Jalen Waddle over 100 yards on his 3 catches, one of them the long touchdown, and Tyreek Hill going for 9 receptions as well, and including that key touchdown late in the third quarter. So, yeah, you want to get them involved. It had to do with Buffalo adjustments. And now there were some short yardage situations where 3rd and 1s, if you just run the ball instead of, okay, now you're trying to look for a certain play in the passing game. Sometimes it just comes down to, hey, even if you're playing that 8-man front and we have a yard to gain, we've been dominant in the run game to start this game, and it set up a lot of other stuff too. But let's just go get this 1 yard, run it downhill, mano a mano. It's just a confidence thing of we believe we can do this against you, even if you know it's coming. And the Dolphins kind of shot away from that. So that was one thing I did want to see in those elements after it was so successful early, even because the Buffalo Bills got to know early as well that the Dolphins are going to be trying to establish the run, even if they hadn't the previous 2 games. First time playing in these kind of elements, then you kind of know Miami, okay, well, they're going to be going run heavy early, and especially with Tua struggling the previous 2 games, let him get into a groove with that, try to work him in with getting the run game going first, and then opening up some easy throws to him. So you got to say the Bills knew it was coming early, and it was still effective then. So I would have liked to see a little bit more in that balance, which of course you do have to find a balance when you have those talented receivers, but a little bit more toward the running game throughout on Saturday.
Yeah, and look, we just got done talking about the run game, but this is a Tua segment, and again, Pro Bowl rosters will be announced tomorrow night. 8 p.m. Correct, Furones?
Right, 8 p.m. on NFL Network.
On NFL Network, Tua's name will be called tomorrow night, and speaking of Tua, because this segment is about Tua, we got a couple of passing game tweets. Stevie Splash 11 asks, why are these opposing DBs getting away with so much clutching and grabbing on our receivers the last few weeks? Can Miami send a tape to the league to help going forward? And then R. Bernal Cohen asked, why do you think the new coaching staff don't want to get Gesicki involved in their game plan, and why didn't they trade him before the trade deadline? We've talked about both of these things before. The Gesicki thing is well, actually, we've talked about Gesicki. As far as the opposing DBs, they're going to do what they can get away with. That's pretty much up to the refs. I mean, up to the refs to stop that. I don't know what the Dolphins send to the league. They've been kind of vague on that kind of stuff, but really what I want to talk about is Tua's role when you do have, if you do have the DBs clutching and grabbing. As you mentioned, the 49ers and the Chargers tried 2 different strategies to take the Dolphins passing game away. They both worked fairly well. And so when you're talking about, Gesicki and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, it gets into Tua and what he can do with these opportunities and how he can look off defenders and how he can use his feet to buy a little bit more time. And really, that gets into everything that Tua can do down the stretch. If they're clutching and grabbing the receivers, if Mike Gesicki is not an option, this falls back on Tua. And what can Tua do? And, really this goes into what's going to happen with Tua in the offseason. Does he get a contract extension? You don't have to. This is not, you're not obligated to extend his contract. But this all offers insight into whether you should or whether you will. And I'm speaking with the Dolphins. So, depending on what you see down the stretch is it enough to make you extend Tua's contract this offseason? You might still have questions about his durability. You could still have questions about whether the Mike McDaniel system has led to his success, whether having Tyreek has led to his success. To me, I'm probably not going to extend Tua this offseason, no matter what happens down the stretch, short of winning a Super Bowl. But because there are still going to be questions about his health, and there are still going to be questions, and not his health, his ability to stay healthy is what I mean, to absorb the hits. And there's going to be other questions, but I expect that Tua is going to succeed down the stretch here. I expect that he's going to get them to the playoffs. I even expect the defense will play well enough to get him to the playoffs. But we're talking Tua here. I think he's going to do good enough, but probably not enough to make me want to extend his contract. What about you, Furones? What do you think? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and you can also go the fifth-year option route, which would solidify that Tua is with the Dolphins through 2024. So right now he's finishing year 3. You decide that this offseason, and then similar to Lamar Jackson with the Baltimore Ravens, they went the fifth-year option route. So and he won an MVP over there, and they still weren't fully convinced and convicted to go give him the big money. But hey, if you're the Dolphins, and look, you've gone these 20 years without 20 plus years without a franchise quarterback, and then you've seen some signs of it this year. Then you've seen some discouraging signs also where he didn't perform in those San Francisco and LA Chargers losses. Then I was encouraged that he bounced back the way he did in this past game in the elements and after 2 tough games. So he's had a lot of ups and downs, just being able to respond from when he does have those lows, and then it's just remaining consistent when you do have the highs as well. And this is also the first year where he's got an offensive-minded coach in Mike McDaniel working with him. He's got the weapons of Tyreek Hill and now Jalen Waddle in a second season where he had to let Waddle develop a little bit for the first half of that rookie year. And then you really saw Waddle come into his own and not just catch the short passes for averaging, 4 or 5 yards per catch. Then it became more of a combination of depth on routes and everything that we've seen now, where he now has established a new career high with 3 games left, and Tyreek Hill has broken a franchise record for receiving yards in a season, and is in contention to lead the league with Justin Jefferson, who has been really hot of late. But this is the first time that you see all these things coming together, and it's only year 1 of the McDaniel to combination, along with Tyreek Hill. So, give it more time to really make sure that you see everything coming together, and I think it will over time. Just time together will only benefit them. Of course, there are the concerns over his health, if he can stay healthy, so that you have to monitor over more time. And if you see consistently over years that he is getting hurt every season and not available to you, then that's something you have to consider as well. It's not just his play when he is there. It's also, will he be there for you? Availability, of course. I think they say it's the best ability.
I've heard that. It's
a common cliche.
Yeah,
so that's going to come into play as well.
It is, but look, and I think we can wrap this up. That we would both agree. Look, things are trending in the right direction with Tua. There's no doubt about that.
Yes.
But there's just no rush to do anything. I think that's probably what the organization will think. That's what most NFL teams think when it comes to, signing these quarterbacks, that we'll do it when we have to or when we want to. There's no rush to get into it. So,
yes, I think we're far from the times of twice trying to replace Tua with either the Deshaun Watson pursuit or looking into Tom Brady. I think now we're at a point where the Dolphins can feel comfortable knowing, okay, we don't have to replace him right now. If he shows some signs later on, like if this season ends on some ultimate, I'm talking like worst case scenario where he looks awful like he did in the 49ers and Chargers games, and it leads to a 6-game losing streak. You lose the final 3, don't make the playoffs, and then going forward, he also can't get the most out of this offense with all the weapons. Then you're really reconsidering. But right now, you're at a point where you're pretty pleased with Tua Tagovailoa and the strides that he made. And we're just talking about how he's probably going to be in the Pro Bowl. He just, although it's the fan vote and it counts as 1/3, he led the league in fan voting. So, yeah, some of that is a popularity contest, but a lot of that was deserving of Tua. He had the best, pretty much the best month of November. Also adding that last game in October against Detroit, it really in the league. So. Yeah, he's had his glimpses where he is right up there, and then just now has to earn that consistency.
Yeah, I would. His contract will get extended. It's a matter of when, not if. If things continue to trend in this direction. All right, so talking about trending in a certain direction, let's migrate to the other side of the ball, Furones, and you know the fans have not been happy about the defense, and we're going to talk about the defense right now, and specifically defensive coordinator Josh Boyer, and you know, a lot of fans have wondered about the job that he's done. We know this defense has suffered some personnel losses, but you know, we go out to Twitter just to kind of get things going here. And you know, on Twitter, we're going to get some things about. Hang on, I got to get to this tweet here. We're gonna see tweets such as. Hang on, I'm getting to this tweet here, but it's where are we here? Here we go. Nope, not there yet. Wow, this is terrible. This is live.
Because you chose so
live
many
internet
tweets for this show.
And it's such a short tweet.
You got to shuffle through so many of them.
All right, here we go.
But we love to get the fans involved. All right, all right. Like Buffalo fans at Highmark Stadium throwing snowballs, we at Dolphins Deep Dive get the Miami fans involved in our program.
Thank you for stalling right there. I appreciate that. You're a true pro. All right, so here's the tweet. It's from Jim B39, and the entirety of it. The reason I have so much problems. Who will be our next DC? That's what it is, but that's a theme, that's a thought that's out there from a lot of fans, and they're not happy with the job that Josh Boyer has done. And look, you know, I guess we know that he's lost some key players, right? And we know who those players are, starting with Byron Jones to Brandon Jones to Nick Needham to Emmanuel Ogbah. But they did get Bradley Chubb, and that's a huge acquisition. And they do have this pass rushing trio of Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips and Melvin Ingram, and fans want to see more from them. But let's just focus on Boyer right now. Does he return next season? And if not, what does the defense need to do, you know, for him to remain the rest of the way? You know, if the plan right now is for him not to come back, can he save his job? And has he philosophically adapted to the different personnel and the personnel losses? Like, should he be blitzing less? Do they need to play more two high safeties to get those passing yard numbers down? I'm not one who blames Josh Boyer like, you know, he's done a terrible job. He's had some personnel losses. Now, that's not an excuse. It's an explanation, but it is not an excuse. This defense has regressed. This defense has taken a step back. And, you know, look, you can use the offensive line as an example, right? They had some personnel losses, but they managed to put it back together. Teron Armstead having a lot to do with that, but whatever. It's a bottom line business. So at this point, I'm not sure that Josh Boyer comes back, but I don't think that Josh Boyer has done a terrible job. But look, yeah, they've still blitzed a lot, but they've blitzed in different ways. They have made some changes, right? Because you see Javon Holland now at playing more strong safety, and Verone McKinley playing more free safety. That used to be reversed, right? Where Brandon Jones was the strong and Javon was the free. So that's one example of an adaptation that Boyer has made. But I don't know if he comes back. I don't think at this point he necessarily deserves to be fired, but you would like to see more out of that defense. So we'll see what happens with the defense, but they need to show a little bit more down the stretch. People have wondered why the late game collapses, why the late game touchdown drives or scoring drives. I don't know. I don't know if that's a strategy / philosophy thing. We know that in at least 3 games they were on the field for a really long time. Buffalo, San Francisco, and the Chargers, and they won that Buffalo game. The Buffalo game in September. So I think that Boyer has done okay. I don't know what letter grade I would give him. Maybe a C, maybe a C minus. I don't know. But he would definitely get better than a passing grade from me. But is that enough to bring him back next year? I really don't know. Your thoughts on Boyer and whether he's adapted and whether his job is in danger?
Yeah, there's so much to touch on with this. I guess we'll start from the beginning is when Mike McDaniel was hired, and then they're determining the coaching staff. I mean, there was a lot of talk about Vic Fangio, as reported by our own Omar Kelly when he was still on the beat, and who is now with I Am Athlete, doing a tremendous job of producing over there. So there was talk about Vic Fangio for defensive coordinator, and ultimately, while that didn't happen, then the thought in keeping Josh Boyer was keeping consistent as much as possible on the defensive side, which really anchored the team through the 7-game win streak in the second half of the 2021 season, feeling that it was more so about what the defense was doing than the mediocre quarterbacks that they happened to play through a lot of that stretch. Whether it was Cam Newton or the Texans and Davis Mills, was he quarterback in that game? It was Kyle Allen this time.
Kyle Allen,
yeah. But last year they played the Giants at home, and Mac Jones, and beating all these subpar quarterbacks, Zach Wilson. So was it more so just, hey, they played some easy offenses that the Dolphins were able to dominate, or was it really the defense had come along and become a new even Ian Book in that New Orleans Saints Monday Night Football game? How can we forget Nick Needham with the pick six? That it was over from that play on in the first quarter. But now, and with all the questions about can Josh Boyer still do it when Brian Flores isn't there as head coach with him, a lot of that has not gone his way as the Dolphins defense, despite having these built-in excuses or reasons, whatever you want to call it, the personnel losses. This Dolphins defense, at the end of the day, still has enough to be a lot better than what it is. And whether it's points per game, where they're 27th, yards per game, 23rd, the passing defense is 27th. They're not forcing turnovers. They're bad on third downs. So red zone, so many different things. And it just hasn't gone the Dolphins' way. And they have enough when you look at how well Christian Wilkins is playing up front. You think of every level. Zach Sealer is a huge part of their run defense, which is really strong against the traditional run game. Maybe not so much scrambling quarterbacks who have accounted for a lot of the rushing yards against. At the edge, you mentioned that pass rushing combination, that trio, that even with the loss of Emmanuel Ogbah, you added Bradley Chubb. So you should still have that going for you. Now, the biggest reason is not having the cornerback play. Byron Jones not playing this season, on the physically unable to perform list from the start of the year, and that's a whole nother episode if we're going to get into what's going on there. But just fact of the matter is you don't have him. So he was a key part, having him and Xavier Howard man-to-man on the outside to free up everyone else, all the exotic blitzes that Boyer likes to put out there. Not having Byron Jones, not having Xavier Howard fully healthy, so those groin injuries which linger on a body and are hard to get over, he hasn't been healthy. He hasn't looked like himself all season. Still getting beaten coverage, even though he is not listed on the injury report as getting treatment for the groin injury anymore. Losing Brandon Jones, losing Nick Needham in the middle of the year. And then you were without Eric Rowe and Elijah Campbell this game, so you're going even deeper and having to really rely on Verone McKinley, an undrafted rookie at free safety. And then Javon Holland, that changes his role, where he's not the that center fielder, free safety all the time. So he hasn't been able to make as many plays or even blitz like he might want to. So there's been a lot of factors, but ultimately this defense still has enough to be better than it has. And maybe all it needs is a little home cooking, get back at home where the defense has been so much better than on the road, which no one can really explain, whether it's players or Josh Boyer himself. But there's something about those friendly confines behind you there, Perk, of Hard Rock Stadium, where this defense really turns it on, and not when they are on the road. So next game is at home against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers on a short week for them. So possibly look for a bounce-back effort from the Dolphins defense, but then they're going to need it going forward against the Patriots when they go back on the road. You really don't want to be giving up a lot of points to that New England offense, so then you got to take it on the road as well.
Yeah, and look, one aspect of the defense, we've mentioned Bradley Chubb, and people have sent in tweets. We get this one from I'm Boom Boom Pal. Even though Bradley Chubb isn't getting sacks, how much is he contributing to the increased success of Phillips, Wilkins, and Sealer? By the way, I'm Boom Boom Pow has a great avatar. It's a Sanford and Son. I referred to it today online. I'm a huge Sanford and Son fan. And we also get this Bradley Chubb inquiry from Rob Wise 12. When will Bradley Chubb start playing? Why does our defense continually fail to kill a last drive in vital games year after year after year? So I'll say this about the defense and overall, and Bradley Chubb in particular. The defense, I like the defense. They've got their faults. They've got their flaws. I can't, say they've get a grade of A+. They do manage to make some plays. We saw Jalen Phillips with the strip of Josh Allen, right? And Christian Wilkins scoops it up. They were within a hair of stopping Josh Allen on that two-point conversion. Now, they didn't stop him, so it doesn't, coming close doesn't count. But they did get the Pittsburgh interceptions in the fourth quarter, right? It was Javon Holland and Noah, right? They held Chicago scoreless in the second half, even though Justin Fields rushes for a quarterback regular season record, I believe, 178 yards. They held Buffalo to 2 touchdowns earlier this year, held New England to 1 touchdown. All that seems like ancient history, I know. Because they didn't get the job done the last 3 weeks, but they have made some plays. So I kind of tend to defend this defense a little bit. And as far as Bradley Chubb, yeah, he's got 2.5 sacks and 12 tackles in 6 games with the Dolphins. You want to see more, right? Because this guy was a go for it acquisition at the trade deadline, supposed to be somebody who can top off the defense, that he's that finishing touch that you needed. And again, this defense, as you said, they can't play from the back forward anymore. They don't have those 2 shutdown corners. They have to start from the front back. And you thought Bradley Chubb would be an immediate impact guy. I would say this, the bottom line numbers haven't been what a lot of people would want at this point, but let's give this a full season. Let's give it the other 3 games and the playoffs, and let's see what happens. Somebody was asking, has he influenced, Phillips and Wilkins and Sealer? I think he's probably helped Phillips a little bit. That's what I'm Boom Boom Pow asked. I think Wilkins and Sealer kind of do their own thing, as inside guys. But I think he has helped. Chubb has helped Phillips a little bit, although let's not take anything from Jalen. The dude is balling on his own, and I think that Chubb has helped Melvin Ingram a little bit. Phillips leads the team with 7 sacks, and Melvin Ingram is next with 6. So, add 3 more games, maybe one of them gets to double digits. That's a really good year. But you do want to see Chubb in there making the bigger influence. It hasn't been what you, again, in raw numbers, hasn't been what you want so far. But let's give it the rest of the season, and we'll see what he can do. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, what better for great pass rushers than to play with other great pass rushers and then free up opportunities for one-on-one matchups, or even opportunities where the offensive line, the blockers, forget to account for you. There are a lot of things that can happen like that. And since Bradley Chubb was acquired, Jalen Phillips has 4 of those sacks. Melvin Ingram also has 4 of those 6 sacks. So he had a sack. Ingram did in 4 consecutive games to start when Bradley Chubb first joined. So, there has been an impact, and it gives opposing offenses, their schemes, their offensive lines, an extra man to look out for, to have to account for and block. So, if the offensive lines are focused more on blocking Bradley Chubb, then it's going to free up other guys. And Christian Wilkins has really appeared unblockable since then. I mean, he's played that well going back to last season and most of this year, but really even another level. Again, I would say probably, like you said, a lot more his own doing. But Bradley Chubb's presence is another player that opposing offensive lines are accounting for. And, there's something to be said about what it does for those offenses and having to prepare for another player of his caliber.
Yeah. And to wrap this defense thing up, Furones, I'll ask the question, do you trust this defense down the stretch? And I do. Look, it's not going to be pretty. And they do have one more road game. They've allowed at least 23 points in every road game. And you pointed out that there's a big difference in this defense at home and on the road. Well, you've got 2 home games and 1 road game among these final 3. So that's one reason to trust the defense. But I think they're going to be able to make enough plays against these opponents. Now, if this was, if this was the 3-game road swing that they just finished to close the season, that's probably something different. But given that you do have 2 games at home and, your opponents are, they're respectable. They look, 2 of them, I guess technically all 3 of them could end up being playoff teams. So you do have tests. These aren't, this isn't, Chicago, Cleveland, Houston that you're talking about here. We can't even include Detroit in that anymore, the way they're surging. That's now a quality victory. As you pointed out yesterday, right? That is now flipped into a quality win. So, but I do trust this defense down the stretch to get the job done. I'm not saying they're going to pitch 3 shutouts and, produce 8 turnovers in these 3 games, but I trust them to do the job and help get this team into the playoffs. I expect that, in fact, out of this defense. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, 2 of the 3 at home. We know the Dolphins defense performs at home. And offenses that right now, I mean, the Packers historically under Aaron Rodgers would scare you, but right now don't scare you to that level. Also, the Packers, and I think we'll touch on it a little bit in the next segment, but running back A.J. Dillon, he's probably going to be in concussion protocol after being evaluated for a head injury. So you got to monitor his status. He scored 2 touchdowns Monday Night Football just last night. So obviously Aaron Jones is a weapon for them. And Aaron Rodgers, even throughout the years, even without Devontae Adams this year, and all the years where he didn't have a first-round wide receiver, then you still always have to watch out for him. And even at this stage in his career and with the struggles they've had. But then the Patriots offense really does not scare you. So, I mean, if there is a road game where the Dolphins can get it going and actually take the show on the road, then it could be that one. And then obviously the Jets, we don't even know who's going to be starting at quarterback for them by then. They have 3 different quarterbacks. It could be any one of them between Mike White, Zach Wilson, and Joe Flacco with how things fluctuate with them over time. So, and one thing that we touched on quickly is adjustments that Boyer's had to make. For one, without those corners and fewer blitzes. We see it in the percentages. But then also there have been instances in games where this defense does get torched in the first half. Now, you can't take that away from anyone. There's still that. But then they come out in halftime and then get some second-half stops. I think we saw it in the Detroit game, in the Chicago game, also start of the second half in Buffalo. So you do have to give Josh Boyer credit, I think, for some instances where he made some halftime adjustments, and then the defense started to perform better. That led to the Dolphins then being able to offensively get back in the lead in Buffalo and then ultimately pull off the comeback in Detroit and hold on to a lead late against Chicago, even as the offense didn't continue to score in the fourth quarter in that game specifically. So there are some examples of credit, but also why were they so inept in the first half in those games is something you have to harp on as well. So, and even the Chargers game, hey, they kept the Chargers down to 23 points. That was actually a season best for the Dolphins defense on the road against a very high-powered offense. Granted, that came with a very methodical approach by the Chargers where they held the ball for 40 minutes of this game 60. Time of possession was lost. Yardage totally dominated, and then really had some bad play calls on the Chargers side, fourth down decisions. They came up empty, settled for some field goals. Bend but don't break that the defense is playing. But at least score-wise, they did keep themselves in the game by keeping the Chargers out of the end zone. So we have to give Josh Boyer some credit where it's due, but overall, still, this defense should be performing a lot better than we have seen. So a lot of finger pointing will indeed go toward him. Yeah,
well, a lot better. I would say better, Furones. I don't know about a lot better, but I'll say better. But that's splitting hairs.
It's a talented defense. Yeah. Granted with the injuries, but it's a very talented defense. He has the weapons, the playmakers on that side to get it done.
Yeah, and Xavier Howard has not had a banner season. That's hurt. But okay, so that's all the bread. Here's the meat to this sandwich, Furones. what's going to happen Sunday and beyond? A lot of Dolphins fans are worried about these last 3 games, and can this team push this thing beyond the finish line and get into the playoffs? And I'm surprised at how nervous Dolphins fans are. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be, but considering the scars of the past 2 decades. But to me, I'm fairly confident that this team is going to finish the job. And look, we'll go out to Twitter and we get some tweets. I love this one right here from E Narvez 14. I hope I didn't butcher that. In McDaniel we trust. The question is, are the Dolphins feeling more or less confident after Saturday's game in Buffalo? And we get this one from at Finn's Way. What do you think is the biggest obstacle between the Dolphins and the playoffs? Division opponents, weather, LOL, health, game plan. And we get this one. What is an area the team has from J. Rod Shaw? What is an area the team has exceeded your own expectations at this point of the season? I'll tell you this. As I look at these last 3 games, I think that the Dolphins are feeling pretty confident, which sounds kind of strange coming off of a loss, but I think they're feeling pretty confident. This is a 3-game losing streak, but that Buffalo game, they played pretty well. So now here comes Aaron Rodgers, and he could always get hot. He could always beat you. They've won back-to-back games. The Dolphins are on a 3-game losing streak. So there's some inherent danger down the stretch, starting with Green Bay. And then you've got your 2 division opponents, the Patriots on the road, home against the Jets, 2 teams that know you very well. But, when you look at what's going to happen with this team Sunday and down the stretch, what are you thinking, Furones? Again, I think they win 2 of the 3. I don't know which 2, but I think they get to 10 wins. I think they get to the playoffs. I do think that they win Sunday. The other 2 games, it might come down to that finale against the Jets, which would just be an incredible scenario. But what are you thinking down the stretch for this Dolphins team?
What's this I hear, Perk? You believe they'll get to 10 wins, which was my prediction before the season, that they finished 10-7? What was yours again?
I think I said 11 wins, right? I'm wrong.
8-9, which is still alive, and a lot of the Doomsday Dolphins Twitter fans think that's where it's going after 3 straight losses, which would require a 6-game losing streak. Already 3 of those losses there to finish 8-9. But you're still alive. You're still alive, Perk.
It's not going to happen. I killed that a while ago. It's the 8-9 will not happen.
Okay, well, so
Chris Perkins has learned.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I would say most likely scenarios to get 2 out of these 3, and I would say probably most likely the home wins against Green Bay and then the New York Jets. That gets you in. The most important one is the Jets win, and hey, there's a chance also to win all 3. I would put the most likely finish at 10-7, with the second most likely to be 11-6. This has been a year of streaks for the Dolphins, so I could see them reeling off 3 straight wins after these 3 straight losses. They've done it before. Started 3-0, then a 3-game losing streak, then a 5-game win streak, now a 3-game losing streak again. So I could totally see them flipping it back and then just going on another streak, flipping it the other way. That's kind of just been the way this season has gone. Just to run through some numbers, because they rank in importance like this. The Jets finale is the number 1 most important game. Even just by the percentages, we could run through them. I even have the 538 site open in front of me, so I could run them live. Then the Patriots game is second, and then obviously the Packers game is third. But even then, you got to get a win this Sunday at home with 2 extra days rest on the Packers. You can't go into those 2 even more pivotal games on a 4-game losing streak, especially after. Although all these fans, they have such a hard time taking encouragement out of the way the Dolphins fought in that game. There's a reason why national media contingent that is usually so hard on the Dolphins also came away encouraged. Like you hear Stephen A. Smith talking up Tua. He said, now I believe they can beat anybody. I saw Scott Van Pelt on the post-game Monday Night Football talking up how impressive the Dolphins were to go into that environment on a short week and perform the way they did. I came away feeling like, wow, okay, so this team, while the cold weather was a question mark, hey, they were right there toe-to-toe with the Buffalo Bills, who are the AFC leaders, not only the AFC East, but they're number one in the whole conference, and the Super Bowl favorites. Odds on, odds makers have them as the favorite, even over the Philadelphia Eagles and whatnot, who have just one loss. But the Dolphins right now, as it stands, according to 538, have a 72% chance of making the playoffs as they currently sit here today on Tuesday, December 20th, as the number 7 seed in the AFC. A win versus the Green Bay Packers, that moves it up to the low 80s, 81%. If they lose this game, it flips down into below 60 at 56%. So it is still a big swing game. But independent of this game or the Patriots game, the Jets game is so important because a win there, just a win there, I know it's out of order, but without even considering Green Bay and New England, puts the Dolphins playoff odds at 91%. And then a loss there, then you're talking about 38%. So almost close to a third of a chance. So, yeah, the key is, and look, there are no scenarios where the Dolphins miss the playoffs if they win the 2 divisional games. Beat the Patriots, beat the Jets, you're in. And then in most cases, Packers and beat the Jets, then you're at like a 97% chance of making the playoffs, even if you do lose in New England. So it'll be very unlikely that all the things that need to happen to work against the Dolphins would transpire to keep them out of the playoffs at that point. So 10 wins, especially if it comes between the Jets and Packers games, then should be a surefire way of getting the Dolphins into the playoffs, making their first playoff appearance since 2016.
Yeah, and by the way, we talk about how well the Dolphins did against Buffalo, and I know there's no moral victories, but you know where I'm going with this, Furones. I've been on a one-man campaign for 2 decades to eliminate the term moral victory, because if the Dolphins come within 3 of the Bills in Buffalo, it helps their morale. It doesn't help their morals. It doesn't make them better people. It makes them feel better about the team. So it should be a morale victory and not a moral victory. Anyway, all right, we're done, right?
Yeah.
All right. That makes sense.
But no one would understand that if we said morale victory.
I
would just think you don't know how to pronounce moral.
Correct. That's why the whole term should be eliminated, because morale victory sounds so stupid. Nobody's going to use it. Although I do want to bounce that off Mike McDaniel on Friday. I almost asked Christian Wilkins about it yesterday, but I figured we better keep things a little more business-like. But I might bounce that off McDaniel on Friday and see if I can get him to agree with me on that.
Oh, now you're tipping him off. Now he's going to know. He's going to be ready for it.
Well, I want him to be ready for it. He probably already has a low opinion of me. I want him to know that my ridiculousness.
I don't think so, Perk.
All right. So anyway, let's
no blindsiding Mike McDaniel on Friday.
He might have to be ready for that. All right. So before we get to the prediction, actually, you know what? We did have one question from our chat here from Cap for Life, who has always watched this show and has been a very steady viewer here. Very quickly, gentlemen, do you see this becoming the Tannehill 7-year plan with Tua? I would say this: Tua's upside and his future and the way that he's played is better. They provided Tua with the tools that they didn't provide Tannehill. I thought they should have got Tannehill a running game and a defense, because he needed that kind of help. We see it in Tennessee, although that defense is kind of shaky at times. But they got Tua Mike McDaniel, and they got him Teron Armstead, and they got him Tyreek Hill. And so the 7-year thing with Tua would be more promising. It's a different trajectory. It's a whole different formula than the 7-year plan with Ryan Tannehill. Do you have anything about that very briefly?
Yeah, I mean, we saw what Ryan Tannehill was able to do when he had really the league's top running back those couple of years. So, and I mean, they really complemented each other well. He was able to feast off the play action and hit some deep balls to A.J. Brown and whatnot. Yeah, that was to his advantage later on. We saw him get to an AFC Championship game, get a number 1 seed in the AFC one year. But ultimately just couldn't get over that hump anyway, even when he had that defense and running game in Tennessee. So, yeah, with Tua, I mean, I want to see him flourish with this offense and these weapons. And, yeah, I still am tortured over just seeing Ryan Tannehill be unable to connect on any deep ball with Mike Wallace all those, whether it could have been on either side. It was Tannehill overthrowing, Tannehill underthrowing, Tannehill hitting, but then Mike Wallace drops it, or just something would always happen. And I remember it was just so frustrating those years. But
I think if Tua is here for 7 years, it's under different circumstances and it gets different results than Tannehill's 7 years is what I say.
Okay, yeah, I could ride with that for sure.
Yeah. All right. One more thing: the snowballs. What should? I know. I keep digressing. What should happen in the future if this happens in New England or in a playoff game? Mike McDaniel sidestepped it very wisely. A lot of players in the locker room, I asked them after the game, but I just kind of asked them. I didn't want them, because I wanted them to speak freely. And they said they were bothered by it, but I didn't want to attach their names to it, because I didn't want it to come off as these guys are whining, they're making excuses for losing, blah, blah, blah. So I didn't want to put them in that situation, but they weren't happy. I don't know, among stadium security, police, the referees, I don't know who can take charge, because you could be worried about a rebellion. People have been there. They've been drinking for hours. You get to the game. You want to have fun. You're fired up. National TV, there's 8 inches of snow right there at your feet, and there's a good play or a bad play. You're probably going to make a snowball and throw it onto the field, but there is a safety issue for players, for other fans, because we saw a lot of those snowballs didn't make it to the field. They landed on people's heads. For the police, for photographers down there, camera people, for players and coaches. I guess a flag has to be thrown at some time to say, just to kind of make an example of someone, but you do risk an adverse reaction, even a small one. But I think a flag has to be thrown at some time. Your thoughts on how this should be handled in the future?
Now, Perk, fans drinking for hours is no excuse for them not to have the common courtesy to just resist the urge to hit NFL players on the field with snowballs. But hey, I get it.
I disagree, but I'm not excusing them. I'm just being real here. That people want to have fun, and there's
you gotta have fun, but under the rules, you gotta comply with the rules. And I mean, like laws or whatever, it's not an excuse to break the law. You'll still go to jail. You can't just say, I was drunk.
Very true.
That's why I committed whatever, insert crime. I don't want to get specific and graphic on this program, but did they handle it right? It's kind of a situation where, you would think officials and police would be more prepared for such possibilities, because it does snow often in a lot of these stadiums. So maybe that should have been said from the beginning, established, hey, no throwing of snowballs onto the field. It's one thing, sure, I mean, I get it. It's fun. Like, I walked from the press box to the locker room area at Highmark Stadium, where you have to go outside when you're over there, and then I saw some piles of snow, and even I, without a drink all night, without an alcoholic beverage all night, although I did enjoy the hot chocolate that they served at Highmark Stadium press box. But yeah, I was grabbing snowballs, and I wanted to throw one. It was really quite fun. But I didn't throw them at anybody. I was walking with, I think you, who else was it? Marcel from ESPN.
And Hal.
I didn't throw it at any of you guys. I just threw it into the general abyss outside. So I didn't put anyone in danger with that. But yes, I can attest that it is a fun activity to engage in the snow. But at the end of the day, these are still players that are playing a professional game on the field. So nothing should be thrown from the stands into the field of play. I mean, we saw malice at the Palace with the Pacers and Pistons and what transpired there. Now, it's different in an NFL stadium. I understand. It's not like you're going to get these football players. Although, hey, we see Lambeau Leaps. Football players can easily access the crowd if need be, or not need be, but if they were so encouraged to do, if influenced by a fan hitting them in through a face mask with a snowball or something. But at least for the most part, once they did make the announcement, it was kept under wraps. It was under control. We did still see some snowballs go, especially when there was that little brouhaha near the goal line on the far end of the field, and after the personal foul that the Dolphins were hit with on a late hit out of bounds on Josh Allen, and then a little scuffle. A lot of fans were throwing snowballs in. I said right then, hey, if they didn't throw a flag for that, then they're definitely not serious about enforcing that rule that they announced. So it didn't happen then. And yeah, I mean, even you mentioned stuff like you have to worry about if a fan that's really out to get someone puts some hard object into a snowball, a battery or something, and then throws it, and it could really hurt somebody. So I know snowballs explode on impact. So especially on heavily padded, helmeted football players, they shouldn't hurt them too much when they're taking hits from one another on the field. But still, it could affect the gameplay as well. There were some that came really close to Tyreek Hill on that throw to the end zone that Tua made in the first quarter that Tyreek Hill couldn't come up with. Some came close to Connor Williams when he was getting ready to snap a ball. So yeah, that's something that should not be impacting game the way it did for some early parts of Saturday night's game.
Yep. So we'll see what happens. I obviously that's not the first game in NFL history where there was a bunch of snow and people threw snowballs, but that I don't remember anything to that extent in recent memory. I know it's recency bias, but I don't remember anything that was to that extent in recent history. All right.
Have fun throwing them in the air when you celebrate when your team does something well, but not throwing them onto the field, putting players in danger. That's all.
Yep. Very well said. Now that we sound like a couple of unfun old men. All right. So let's get to prediction time. The Dolphins they cannot lose this game. And I don't mean that they actually can't. I mean, they shouldn't. They better not. And I'm thinking that they won't. So I'm going Dolphins 32-20. I'm not sure that – I know that Green Bay has some playoff hopes. They got 8 losses. They're still in it at 6-8. But I just kind of think in the back of their minds, they're going to be like, dude, what are we doing here on Christmas Day? Come on. Like, we should be up in Green Bay with our families. I don't want to be here. So that's one reason. But the other reason, I just think the Dolphins are the better team and they're at home. So Dolphins 32-20 is my pick. Furones, your pick.
Okay. And, I didn't even have a score in mind going into the show. But I do have the Dolphins winning. I'll say it's something like 30-20. I'll go 30-20. Yeah, Dolphins win. They cover more than one possession game. Maybe put it away with a field goal, then puts it out of reach late, so gets to that 10-point mark where the Packers can't do it in less than 2 minutes. And Dolphins defense to an extent comes back, has a nice outing at home, and we see Tua, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, the run game kind of all factor into a nice, well-rounded victory as the Dolphins get back on track going into those 2 pivotal divisional games.
All right.
And Merry Christmas to all Dolphins fans.
Oh, there you see. You're so caring. I wasn't even going to say that. You're so considerate, man. That's why I need you here, because you're the considerate guy. You're the one who tells fans not to throw snowballs. I excuse them. I excuse their drunken snowball throwing. So that's our balance here. All right. So I'm your boy Perk. That's your boy Furones. Tune in next Tuesday at noon for Dolphins Deep Dive.